Whoa. Yeah, I turned the camera on. Making a video. Wasn't sure which one to make when, but I think this will be a response to Professor Anton. That's what I think we'll do, so let's load that one up. Yeah, I didn't listen to the whole thing. Played part of it. It's the same kind of theme. It's sort of this stuff like he's between atheist and theist. There's somehow a need to explain our existence as something more than what we can materially dissect as a view. There's something underlying it all somehow. It somehow means more than its creation, or whatever. Something, I don't know. Yeah, there was a couple of remarks he made that are just, they're probably worth some sort of response by somebody. So I guess that somebody is me. Yeah. And what else? But I did want to mention that I'll make a video eventually. I don't, time is really, I got a lot of crap to do. Diana Boston has got a professor who's willing to review some of this stuff. So I think what I'll do is he can just listen to the cannibal crap. I don't really want to listen to it. I don't want to go through the 7 parts and time code. Find the time codes for all the parts that are relevant. I mean, that just seems like I just don't want to listen to that stuff again because I don't want to respond to it again. So if somebody else wants to do that, they just want the languagey kind of parts. But I thought I would just review what it was that I'm arguing, because it's not that complicated. I'm just focusing on the fact that it was a small change in our biology that created this opportunity for language development, that we did not acquire language little pieces at a time. We didn't evolve an understanding of the words one by one. Our brain didn't change for each word that we learned. None of that happened. We were given a huge potential and we had no way to use it until we developed a language. And that's just the reality. It was a quirk of the biology. And that's why it's only happened one time. Again, this isn't one of these one-time event things. Other organisms are not developing languages and doing this abstract thinking because you sort of need to fall on it by accident. You have to trip over something and fall on it. And that's sort of the way it works. Now I'm making that video, and I really don't want to make that video now. So anyway, I have some appropriate background music for this video. So I think I'll play that. So it's kind of funny. Yeah. This is eerie. Professor Anton is a little bit eerie. Let's see, I don't want it to be too loud. Just in the background. Yeah. Let's see. About there? I'd say that's about right. And also give me a timing thing. I don't want to make this a long video. So, it'll keep me from going way over. So let's see if the professor's plays loud enough. No, I break him louder. How do I do that? I don't know how to do that.
How did self-aware consciousness emerge in nature?
That's not too bad.
And what was its earliest register, its earliest experience or
Yeah, well, okay, the earliest experience is going to be really hard to define because you had all these different kinds of human beings who had all kinds of different capacities. Some were really dumb, and some were really smart in terms of how they were living. Okay, you had dumb humans and you had smart humans at the same time on planet Earth. Ignorant, let's say. It gets a little complicated. The first invaders, from Africa, 40,000 years ago, what were they really? How savage. We can only imagine their life. But it was basically an emotional life, we have to concede, right? They didn't have an intellectual understanding of the world. So all they could do was emotionally react to it. They could get angry, they could get frustrated, they could get a lot of things. But they didn't have the tools of understanding to do much with it. And so all they really had was voodoo. All they really had was superstition and myths and little bits of associated knowledge, between maybe certain patterns of the weather, certain patterns of the seasons, and certain patterns, and they had a vague idea what was going to happen. And that's all they had, was a vague idea from their personal experiences and from what little they could glean from the stories told by the elders. But they were just emotional animals caught, raised in voodoo. It doesn't sound to me like it'd be a wonderful life, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. Just not. I think that's still too loud. It's like the Twilight Zone. All right.
Comprehension of itself. I think rather than being something like Descartes' I think, therefore I am, which in fact is very modern, very literate, right? It's a product of literacy. The earliest expression of self-awareness was the gods are, therefore I am. That is, they needed some distance to recognize themselves, and the self-reflexive moment wasn't just conscious doubling over on itself, it was projecting an other outward and then imagining that other was hailing one as an object.
I don't even know if it was that complicated. I think they just saw that they were manipulating animals. They were manipulating the environment. And they saw how they were being manipulated. They saw how they were being, forced and pushed and pulled by the environment. By the clouds in the sky. So, they just presumed they were ants in somebody else's yard.
I recognized myself as an other for the other, and that was the dawn of self-awareness in humanity. But the other was a projected other, an imagined other.
A completely, right, exactly, a created other, okay? It doesn't really otherly exist. And so I don't understand why you would say there is some component of that fantasy that has some value, and that you're not going to just concede that there is no other, there's just us, and that's the way it is.
In my argument, it would be an other who was needed to give thanks to in order to help expiate the guilt that it was coming from the emergence of self-awareness.
Well, again, this is just this idea. This is kind of a hard sell, Professor. You're going to say people should feel guilty for their sorrow, for watching their babies die, for being beat up, for their segregation, for the, being dominated by some male or some stinky beastie who's the king of the tribe. All of that, people should somehow be thankful for that brutal and harsh existence. I don't think so.
Okay, now when I say that there was a guilt, a natural guilt, it sort of equates with the emergence of self-awareness in finite organisms, and that's us. It's sort of like if you ask the question, how can humans be utterly dependent? And we're utterly dependent, and yet experience autonomy and individuation. We experience conscious choice, and we say, well, will I do this or will I do that? And we can deliberate. We can think of our own projects and goals with an awareness and a deliberative process. And yet, there are so many factors outside of us that hinder and limit.
Yeah, I know. Well, look, this is like being, whether you're underdog or Superman. How expansive are our powers? Well, so yeah, we know we have limitations, but we also know we have great power. I just don't see how this creates some sort of dilemma. You don't have to have ultimate, universal, complete control over a system to have control over it, to have an ability to influence. You can push the ball, or the rock off the cliff. You could do certain things. And there's certain things you can't do. You can't juggle it. You can't do this. You can't. So what? You still can influence. You still have control over yourself, pretty much.
And curtail. And it's that balance of somehow an organism who does experience an existential moment of autonomy. We experience autonomy despite the fact that we...
Autonomy is a tricky word because, we know what we are in terms of how we are conditioned to environments. I mean, it's just, like I said, I can imagine living as a human being 40,000 years ago. But that's all I can do is imagine it. And I can imagine the control that would impose on me. I can imagine being born in another country and understanding that I wouldn't be me. I'd be somebody else if I was raised in that culture.
Are bound within a physically closed system. We need sleep, we need food, we need physical contact with others, we need attention from others, we need countless forms of commerce with the larger world. I mean, not only atmosphere.
Need and want are really tricky words here, so again, this is troublesome. To survive, we don't need all that crap. To have some hope of living a comfortable life, whatever that means, you're going to need a lot more stuff. You're going to have a lot more stuff, and you're going to need to be liberated from a lot of things. I mean, it's not just so much about what we need to have, it's what we need immunity from. That's the other side to that coin. We need immunity from the fetters and the crap and the shit and the obligations and the responsibilities and all the other shit that can drag us into a pit of pointlessness.
Pressure and the various forms of nutrient, but just ongoing breeding, metabolism in all of its forms. There is a dependency that is largely unseen. It's felt, maybe registered in the backdrop, but it's sort of in a balancing act between the experiences of autonomy that we have and of self-legislation and self-governance. Now, I think, okay, so that's part of what I'm getting at with guilt. When we're talking about guilt is it's the dawning of self-awareness in a finite being, and it...
Well, how does, how do I make anything out of that? I mean, it just doesn't register as a food to me. You're talking about, like, well, you mix the cement with, a little bit of wood, pulp, some go out and saw a piece of tree and get some sawdust. So mix the sawdust with the cement and throw in a few pebbles and, bake it at 350 degrees and it's all yummy. So I can't make this into food for my brain. I just can't find anything reasonable in this stuff. What are you saying? I'm not getting it. Ooh, the background music is completed.
Compels the organism to need to give to imagine someone who you could give back to. And see, this is part of that dependency issue. See, I think the point is that as organisms, earliest tribal peoples, who tens of thousands of years, people lived in small bands of hunter-gatherers. I think they were more honest, just frankly, in a way, about their dependency upon nature than modern individual.
Yeah, well, but you're glorifying it. Okay, they had a more honest relationship with nature. They were scared to death. I mean, come on.
Industrialized Western societies, we have a tendency to engage in what I've tried to identify, again, coming out of Becker, certainly coming out of Burke as well, is this notion of the causa sui project. Now, the causa sui project is the sense that people are completely of their own making. The sense that each of us have of making something of yourself, of doing something.
Yeah, well, again, this is this is philosophically weak. Okay, I mean, if you really talk through this subject of any kind of free will or any of that nonsense, you really do know that we are a product of 4 billion years of evolution, and every bit of that has had some influence on what we are right now, what I'm saying right now. It's all built out of that whirlpool, and you can't really, very little of it could you, well, I'm not going to say very little. I mean, I obviously could move a rock in the driveway, and it's probably not going to affect the future too much. But there's a lot of stuff that would.
With your life, of feeling like it's under your prerogative to make something of oneself. that is a very, very modern notion.
Right, because as soon as I make something of myself, it means that somebody else won't be making something of themselves. I mean, this just gets, if I marry some woman, then she's not going to be married to some other guy, and then he's going to be married to some other guy, and then she's going to be married to some other guy. I mean, it goes on and on and on. I mean, the chain of effect is almost infinite. Because you make one change, it's going to change every other human relationship.
But it's caught within larger cultural practices by which we try to get some kind of control over nature. We're almost to the point of self-cause now in this point in history, where
again, so there has to be a presumption that nature is not something worthy of controlling, that it's some sort of force that we should just bow to, that if we can't stop the horrific tornado from ripping through the village, that somehow we should just sit back and not stop it. Of course we should stop it. Of course we should do what we can to control it. It's what brains do. Brains find ways to fix problems. And everything about nature seems to want to be a problem.
Again, we're kind of like standing on our own two legs as if we're going to beat nature back into size, or we're going to beat it back compared to us. But I think we're mistaken, that nature is so overwhelming and so overpowering that...
Well, again, how does any of this make any sense? Again, nature is the crude force. We have the elegant understanding force. We have the knowledge. Nature doesn't have the knowledge. Nature's not acting as a Einstein. It's not acting as a legitimate authority. And you're just saying, well, because it's got the rolling pin or the frying pan, that we should just acquiesce to being bashed over the head with it. I don't think so.
At best, we're just eking out spaces where the freedom feels wider and wider, and we've been amazing the way we've been able, humans, modern Western humans, have been able to conquer, space and distance in a way that was unimaginable. Here I'm posting up this video that can be watched around the world. We've put people on the moon. We've through microscope and telescope, we have opened up the cell of the very cells of the body, germplasm.
Right. We've done all of this, and that's really part of the point here of where do we go from there? Because what we've gleaned as knowledge from that is that we are caught up. Something very precious is caught up in a mechanical system that has none of this eloquence, and no refinement in it. It's like tying your kids to billiard balls and then saying, let's play pool. I mean, it's just a grotesquely dull, stupid, crude system that we are glued to. It is an insidious ball and chain.
Germ theory, all of the kind of scientific discoveries that we've had, these have fed into the Causa Sui project, where we try to combat nature and find a space for our own agency and our own autonomy. But we cover over our dependency. We cover over the way that the dependency hasn't gone away. And
the whole we, all this stuff, what are we talking about? I mean, there's really two elements here. There's your stupid existence personally, and then there's this idea of this reoccurrence, this idea that just keeps perpetuating, that we keep tying new kids to the billiard balls. I mean, we just keep doing it, and you're saying, well, let's figure out a way not to say ouch as we bang into each other in the stupid game. And then some of us just say, well, let's quit tying kids to these stupid balls. Let's just drop the cue and quit playing the game, because it's just too stupid.
Moment's notice, just out of nowhere, you get hit by a lightning bolt. You can have...
Yeah, I know it's ironic kind of laughter or whatever. It's just, you know, that we should just, let's just laugh. Oh, the brain, yeah, Christmas brain tumor. Yeah, those are so fucking funny. I mean, oh, come on. I mean, do we really have to keep doing that? Do we have to just keep on laughing? Ah, look, its head fell off and it rolled in. Did you see the way it bounced and stuff? That was just such a funny bounce. You know, and it almost looked like a rabbit. No.
Have all of your conscious plans well thought out, your self-disciplined body on a trajectory for you to pursue what you are.
Yeah, and it's all pointless waste. Oh, it's just so funny. Oh, you know, somebody drops their cigarette and the whole forest burns down. No, it's not funny.
In self-governing way, and brain aneurysm, earthquake, flood, fire, spontaneous accident. You know, there are ways that we are helplessly dependent upon forces.
Yeah, it's just not ways. It's the whole system. We are helplessly pointless in our existence. It's helplessly redundant. It's helplessly futile. It's tic-tac-toe. Intelligence can't play it. And you're essentially arguing that let's go back and reinvent voodoo, because if you add voodoo to tic-tac-toe, well, then you can play it. Because then you can break the rules. Then you can pretend the rules don't exist. The rules of futility. And that's all you're saying, and I just, no. I think that's intellectually insane. I just don't see how that can have any kind of intelligent merit. That you just run away from it. You throw the intelligence in the toilet just so you can play a game that's contrived by a DNA molecule. Chemistry. I mean, just, no. Sorry, no sale. Anyway, a little creepy music, though. Pretty good creepy music. Alright. Until next time.